Good Monday morning, Noblesville. Boy, it feels good to be back. It is Monday, April the 12th, 2021, and welcome for another edition of Mental Health Monday. We've taken a few weeks off here to acknowledge spring break. We hope that you have taken some time for yourself to relax, to spend some time in some self-care. I know I did a little bit of that. And so we're glad to have you back here today, refreshed. We have a ton of topics to cover here on this Monday morning. I'm joined, as usual, by my good friend, Kristen Boice of Pathways to Healing. Good morning, Kristen.
Good morning, Mayor Jenson. I'm so excited to be back. I've missed everybody, so thank you for joining us this morning. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, I have missed everybody as well. And we have, it's funny how, you take a few weeks off, Kristen, and there's been a lot of things that have happened in our life the last couple of weeks that have warranted a discussion on mental health. So I can't tell you how many times I had to lean on what you have already taught me on a few things the past couple of weeks. But we'd love to kind of cover some of those with you today here. Just a few ground rules again. If you have any questions today throughout the program, make sure you ask a few questions. It looks like I might be blacked out here on the screen, Kristen, but we're going to keep talking anyway. So hopefully people are hearing me regardless. But we'll start. Why don't we start with a little breathing exercise to get us started, and I'll let you lead that discussion.
Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to put our feet on the floor. And we're going to inhale through our nose for 4, hold for 4, and then exhale slowly out our mouths for 8, like you're breathing through a straw. We want that exhale to be longer than that inhale. And we're really resetting the nervous system. We're coming back to center. We're getting grounded. We're getting centered. And we're calming ourselves down to be in the present moment. So let's practice this together to get started. Pressing your feet into the floor. Inhale through your nose. Slow exhale out your mouth. Let's do one more. Inhale through your nose. And exhale like you're blowing through a straw. Just kind of connect to how you feel after you've taken a couple of deep breaths. Not making anything right or wrong, just noticing and connecting. So we want to get out of our heads, because when we're in our head, we're dead. And we want to get more into connecting into our body and what we feel emotionally. So we can have authenticity, vulnerability, and connection in our lives. So that's the invitation as you move forward this week. When you feel that hint of stress in your nervous system, when you feel that trigger, when you feel like you want to get highly reactive, stop and take 5 deep breaths. This is the hardest thing we do, because the easiest thing to do is just do the reaction rather than doing that self-soothing. So just make it a point this week to really be intentional about that breathing.
That's incredibly helpful. And like I said earlier, I know that I had to do a lot of breathing over the last several weeks on several topics. I want to kind of address them here with you today and talk about I love the comment you just made, when you're in your head, you're dead. So let's talk a little bit about social media, if you wouldn't mind, Kristen. The last couple of weeks, there's been a lot of topics on social media. I won't go into them, but I'm sure some people might know about them. And not just Noblesville specific topics, but all sorts of topics. And I found myself, unfortunately, breaking my cardinal rule of reading comments on social media. So can we talk a little bit about, if you find yourself maybe going down a rabbit hole, if you find yourself engaged way too much, maybe talk a little bit about what engaging too much looks like, if you wouldn't mind. But how do we kind of rein ourselves back in, kind of do a little self-check on ourselves when it comes to social media to kind of get us reset and recentered on what is really important?
So there's a couple of things. The psychology of social media is deep and wide. So I want to keep it to a nutshell for the most part, because what we've created in social media, there can be some positive that comes out of it, and then there can be some not so positive that comes out of it. And first of all, we're hoping to get connection. Maybe it's connection, maybe it's information. And sometimes we can show up on social media and not be authentic on how we would show up if we were in one-on-one with somebody in person. And so that can be a disconnect. So are you showing up how you would if you were talking to someone in person, face to face? So that's the first thing when we're engaging in social media. Are you being mean, or how are you intentionally giving a comment in when you're responding to something? Maybe you're triggered by something, and it's okay. You're going to have your own thoughts, feelings, and opinions, and that's healthy. That's okay. It's how do you respond and show up on social media? So that's one piece. The second piece is we can get caught up in wanting likes. We can get caught up in our worth and value and significance and importance in social media. Like, how many people liked my post? Oh, did not enough people like my post, especially for teens. What I'm seeing there is worth and value and importance and significance is tied into social media, rather than this is a way to have fun and connect. It can be a way to feel left out, to feel less than, to feel shame, like I'm not good enough, to feel insignificant, unimportant. So much is put on social media, rather than this just being an outlet to connect in a different way. You know, a lot of people use social media to show photos of their family, just to kind of use it as a photo album. Some people post it to engage in conversations that probably need to take place one-on-one. So there is a lot to deconstruct about the psychology around social media. And what I want to ask is, what are you hoping to get out of your post? What are you hoping to get out of your engagement in something that you might disagree with? What is your intention? What are you hoping to get out of that? And when you can kind of reconcile being unattached to the outcome, this is something I work on every day, is to not be attached to an outcome. Oh my gosh, that's so hard. What are you hoping to get from this engagement on social media? And is it to fulfill something deeper within you? Is it to fulfill a lack? Is it to make change? Is it you're hoping to make change? Would there be a more powerful way to make that change? Again, there's a lot to deconstruct, and I would love to know in the comments. I think we're having a few technical glitches today, so I'm not sure if we can see the comments today, but I'd love to know, what are your struggles with social media? What do you find triggering? What do you struggle with in terms of giving feedback and engagement? Where do you get hung up? What is your mindset around social media? And then the other thing I want to talk about, the third piece I want to talk about, is numbing. We can get on social media to distract, to move away from, to defend against dealing with things that are really going on in your own life. Defend against maybe shame, anxiety, guilt. Maybe you're struggling with sadness and grief. And instead of feeling your feelings, you're moving away from them and you're numbing. I can find myself on my phone and it's like, oh, how many hours have I been on this device? And so we really want to gauge on, are you numbing? Are you moving away from? What are you hoping to get out of social media? It's very similar to many other numbing ways we can move away with food. We can move away with TV, drinking, pills. The list goes on ways we can numb. And is that a mechanism in which you're using to numb? It's one that all of us on some degree are getting on, if we're honest with ourselves. And we are moving away from how we're really feeling. So how much time are you spending on social media? That's another piece. And I'm not sure if we've lost Mayor Jenson. Are you still with me? I think we might have lost him. So I'm going to keep on talking about social media, even though he's not on right now, to really hone in on the emotions that it brings up within you. So if you read something on social media and it triggers something in you, my invitation for you is to deconstruct that, to really connect to, what are you feeling? What's underneath that? Where are you feeling that in your body? Because those are invitations for us to do deeper work. Anytime there's a trigger that comes up, it's always, and I don't use the word always and never very often, but it's an invitation for us to say, what's going on the inside? What do I need to work on? Where are areas for growth for me? And when you can step in and you can take a look at that deeper work, there's healing that can take place. I promise you. social media can open us up in a way to invite us to do some of the deeper work where we have shame around, where we don't feel good enough, where we might feel unimportant, where we might feel like we don't matter. And if we're looking for acknowledgement on social media, we're going to be sorely left in the dark, because people don't know how to acknowledge each other. So if you're looking to make a post and then you're looking for acknowledgement, probably not going to happen. There are some that know how to do acknowledgement. You're going to be left feeling unseen, unheard, and that you don't matter. You're back.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, awesome. I never left you. I was riding along. I was riding that social media wave with you while we were just going through some technical changes. So you were awesome. My gosh, you just rocked that, by the way. So thank you for running with that a little bit. And you hit on so many key points. So thank you for welcoming me back. And I thought you made a good point. If anyone wants to share some thoughts on social media, I know this is like counterintuitive. Share on social media your thoughts on social media, but please feel free to chime in over there. It's such a topic that I have talked a lot about over the last several weeks. Is man, have I heard from folks on social media? And I think one of the questions, Kristen, that I kept hearkening myself back to, not only for myself but then others, were: is this the best way to make that change, or is this the best way to communicate this? This message? Because so many times over the last several weeks, any topic that came up where maybe later I read something that was written, because I went down that rabbit hole and read a lot of those things that were written, and I went back and addressed it maybe with somebody and said, hey, would have loved to talk to you about X. And their comment was, well, I just didn't think anybody probably read that. I didn't really think it even mattered what I said. So I don't know if you want to talk about that and kind of about that. I've kind of used the phrase that, words do matter. The words we use with one another really, really, really do matter, and whatnot. So I don't know if you want to kind of touch on that, about the whole idea about words mattering and making sure that we're intentional in our verbiage.
Yeah, and I think what we forget on social media is there's human beings on the other side of the screen. There's human beings with feelings. There's human beings that aren't maybe being acknowledged for intentions. So I think when we say words that are hurtful, when we say words that are out of integrity with maybe even who we are, maybe we're so triggered and we're so reactive and we're so in disagreement and we're so activated, that's when I say pause, do not post, do not respond, do not write anything at that moment. Write it on your phone. It's totally okay for you to have your feelings. You're not going to agree with everything, nor would we want that. We're all human beings with different thoughts, feelings, and opinions. That's healthy. That's okay. That's when we're in a system where we can communicate that in a healthy way. I live that out in my family. So my kids will tell me things that are hard to hear. And I want them to, because I want them to be honest. I want them to be authentic, and I want them to be mindful in how they approach it. So if they're just vomiting, just spewing without taking a deep breath, connecting to what they might be feeling, fear, sadness, before they're going to say what they want to say. We can't just vomit out what we want to say the first thing. It's out of integrity with who you are and what your intention is. So the first thing is take a deep breath, write it out to get it out, then be mindful in how you might want to communicate it, so your words are landing with integrity, compassion, some empathy. It can be received and heard so much better than when we spew out mean, resentment, anger, whatever that looks like. What I want to tell people, even in couples and in families, you will be heard more when you can self-soothe and come from that perspective and centered and grounded, rather than a highly activated reactive state. Yeah. We can be in disagreement. That's totally okay. How are you coming? Are you in an aggressive state? Whenever we're in an aggressive state, take 5 deep breaths before you respond. We want to respond versus react. So here's a couple of things I really encourage people with is, one is, what are you trying to communicate? What is it you're really wanting to say? And when I write, that's why I like to write it out before I say anything, to get clear on what am I trying to say? What is my purpose? What is my intention? And what am I trying to say? Then I can go back and I can edit, right, what I wrote and maybe say a prayer over it, maybe really be intentional with that. And then I can maybe respond. And then the other thing is sometimes I ask myself, is this a better conversation in person rather than to post on social media? And 99% of the time, it's a better to if possible, sometimes it's not possible, and I realize that, to request to talk to somebody in person. When we have face-to-face conversations, we realize there's a human being behind the screen and we can hear one another differently and better. And I'm going to come maybe a little bit more self-regulated. So we tend to sometimes hide behind social media. And I really want to encourage people to have more face-to-face conversation. I mean, it's hard right now in the pandemic, but even on the phone, if we can do a FaceTime. And I see we have a comment here.
Yeah, I thought it's Elena Shockweiler, a good friend of mine and a great Noblesville Miller, who brought up a good point kind of about how social media can be a trigger or a facilitator and how it's a fine line. And I think that's a very good point because we don't want to lose social media's ability to group think, right? And add feedback and gather thoughts. But, kind of knowing where am I posting this because I really would love to engage in a positive conversation about something, or am I doing it to stir something up? I think that's kind of what Elena is getting at, which I thought was just an interesting point. So
yeah, and really being mindful of why am I posting something?
Mhm.
What am I hoping to get out of this, right? What am I wanting back from this? And as your community leader, you're asking yourself, I heard you just say, what's the best way for me to communicate some of these changes? One thing is when we make change, it stirs up a lot of stuff for everybody. And that's the truth. And that's okay, because change can invite us into some deeper work. Why is this change really bothering me? What is the emotions I have around it? And you're trying to discern what is the best way to communicate. Because here's the bottom line. We're all trying to figure out what's the best way to communicate. We're in a pandemic. What's the best way to connect with someone and communicate a global message or maybe a one-on-one message, right? And that is something you're trying to deconstruct at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. I like that. And like I said, I don't want to belabor this point too much more, but I appreciate you kind of walking us through. I think social media is something that we're going to continue to live with. It can be a great force for change. It can be a great force for communication when done correctly. And I felt like it was just a little too topical not to bring it up. So I appreciate you kind of walking us through some good advice there. And it's things that I am a constant work in progress on. So thank you for that. I want to transition quickly and talk a little bit. We're into a new season of life here with springtime. I know I spent an unhealthy amount of time at the baseball field yesterday for a triple header. Not the greatest day for it, but everyone's getting outside now. Flowers are blooming. I love the sound of lawnmowers in the morning. That's one of the things that just makes my day. But you brought up a good point when we were chatting offline about, transitioning here to a different time of year, but also being present in the moment and not losing, again, because we can sit here and rehash things that have happened over the past month in our lives. And we do that all the time with friends and neighbors. But how do we focus on being kind of present in the moment that we're in and acknowledging kind of our current state and our existence where we're at?
And this is the biggest journey of my life. To be present in the moment, to not be thinking about what I need to do next, my to-do list, what's going on in the future, planning for the future. How do I bring it back to create the connection with myself and who's in front of me? Because we don't get that time back. And through the breath, I think this is what's so genius about the breath. It brings us back to center. It brings us back to this present moment. So when I push my feet into the floor, I connect to my breath and I come back to center, then I'm more here and now. I'm not in the past. I'm not in the future. So depression's really kind of about the past. Anxiety is about trying to predict the future and the what ifs. And when I go, okay, I'm in my head, let me bring it back to connect to my body. Let me bring it back to my breath. I bring it back to the present moment. It's a practice. It's an exercise. That's why I love nature and being outside, because it brings me back to the present. I hear the birds chirp. I see, like you said, the flowers blooming. I look at the trees firmly planted in the ground, and then the seasons change and the trees change. And it brings me back to this moment we're in right here, right now. And we all have a lot of stress. We might feel overwhelmed. We might feel a lot of shame, like no one cares about me. I'm lonely. I don't matter. I'm not good enough. And it takes us down to the shame spiral. It takes us into the black hole. And what I want to say is take a deep breath. It's okay to have your feelings. Of course, you're going to have all these feelings. They're not wrong or bad. You're not wrong or bad. Take it back. Let's bring it back to the present moment. Let's identify what you feel. Look outside, go outside. It's the most grounding thing we can do, through the breath, through the breathing, being outside, maybe whatever you're physically able to do, even if you just look out the window. What it does is it takes us back to the present moment. Nature and the breath are two of the most powerful things we can do to be here and now.
So I want to touch on that topic. I think I probably know where you're going to lead me to, but let's talk about our kids for a few minutes, because I have a son that's getting ready to do iLearn, I believe, starts this week within some of our testing here at the very end of school. He's very anxious about that, keeps talking to me and keeps bringing that up, that he's excited for spring break to be over, but he knows this is coming. How do we kind of work with our kids to kind of keep them grounded, keep them centered, keep them in the moment, and not too anticipatory of maybe challenges that they have around the corner?
First thing it starts with is us as the parent. So if I'm thinking about the future, if I'm all fixated on the next thing, we're modeling that for them. There's a balance here, right? We have to prepare. And yet, am I always in the future, or am I in the present? And one is self-regulate yourself. So taking your deep breaths and then offering the space to process that. Say, tell me more about you feeling anxious about iLearn. What are you afraid of? I'm afraid I'm going to fail it. I'm making this up, but I'm afraid I'm going to fail it. And I don't know what I'm doing. And so it sounds like there's a lot of shame. There's a lot of you not feeling good enough. You feeling afraid you're going to fail. Yes. And what if I fail? I'm like, and what if you did? Oh, well, this is not a big deal. There's literally 0% of your worth tied to the iLearn outcome. And I may be stirring some feathers here, but that's just the truth of the matter. Is your worth isn't tied to a test. Your worth and value isn't tied to an A grade. It's you showing up, doing the best you can. Take 5 deep breaths. I teach my kids the deep breathing every day. They see me do it. If you walked, like I said, in my house, you'd be like, oh my gosh, all you do is breathe. I'm like, yep, I'm breathing all the time. And so the first thing I'm going to do is take a deep breath so I can be present. I'm going to look with a soft expression in their eyes. So you're going to look at your son's eyes. You're going to soften your face. You're going to give him all your attention, no phones, no distractions. You're going to say, tell me more about it. I see you're worried. I see you're afraid. Let's talk about it. Give them space in your presence to process it. It's the greatest gift you could give another human being on this planet. And if I could teach everybody to do it and then acknowledge it, don't try to fix, rescue, or save. So don't go, oh, it's not a big of a deal. You go, yeah, I get it. It's like you feel afraid you're going to not do well. Yeah. Tell me more about it. You're just acknowledging. That makes sense. That's natural for you to feel that way. I'm acknowledging and holding that space. And then the breathing is huge. Some kids are like, I'm not going to breathe. Fine. That's okay. I'm not going to keep pushing it. I'm going to model it. Just if you get afraid, 5 deep breaths. Mm-hmm. That's the greatest gift, because that's what helps with anxiety. When we're in anxious state, we feel like we can't do it. We can't handle it. I can't tolerate it. I can't take it one more minute. What if? I'm in my head. I want to bring it down to the body. Regulate the body, feet on the floor. So I'm going to teach my kids that. And then I'm going to hold the presence to process what they're feeling. Greatest gift. Cannot tell you enough. And we do this in our family. So we have these hard conversations. We talk about things. We're teaching how to acknowledge each other. That is the greatest gift I think we're missing right now in the world, where we've got a lot of pain in the world right now. We've got a lot of fear. We got a lot of shame. We got a lot of trauma. We got a lot of unprocessed emotion. And if I can teach people how to do it for themselves, acknowledge themselves with self-compassion and grace, we can offer it to our children. We can offer it to our grandchildren. We can offer it to our neighbor, our friend, our partners. It's a game changer. And it takes some self-work to do. I'm making it sound so easy, and it's not.
Yeah, when I caught myself several times this weekend trying to when he said he was nervous about that and just saying, "Oh, you're fine. Oh, it's fine." It's somebody, and I've got to work on myself of letting him process that a little bit and let them play it out a little bit. And I think that's a big challenge as a parent because you want to fix it, you want to brush it off, but you got to let them walk through it, I think, and talk with you about it. So, great topic. I want to end on a topic here, a little heavier topic, but April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, correct?
Yes.
And want to talk a little bit about that and maybe what that looks like. Kristen, you have a lot of experience in this arena. Noblesville has a lot of great resources in this arena, which is awesome with Prevail and other places. So if you wouldn't mind, give us a little bit of a context around sexual assault and kind of some areas that we can go to learn more and then help us process that.
Absolutely. And I'll make it quick because I know we're out of time, and this really merits so much depth. And I want to say, first of all, when someone tells you something that's happened, that is brave. That is courageous. And if you say, I believe you, and I know this has been in the media, I'm telling you, it is one of the most healing things you can offer somebody is to let them let them tell their story. Let them tell their story. Let them process maybe what's gone on. Now, you can't be their therapist. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is offering up an empathic space. And one of the most detrimental things we can say to somebody is, really? Did that really happen? No. We say, I believe you. Prevail here is an amazing support network here that helps victims that have been sexually assaulted. And I highly recommend, if you have had anything like that happen to you, they have support groups. They help you get a protective order if need be. They walk you through the process with such tenderness, grace, and this is what they do. They understand the space. And please, if something like this has happened, contact Prevail. They're here locally, and I want to give you that number right out of the gate. So it's 317-776-3472. You can also go to their website, and I recommend getting help. The sooner, the better. And oftentimes this is something people bury and hide, and they think, it's in the past, I'm just going to move on. And what it does is it lives inside of you. And when you decide, I'm going to heal that, I'm going to tend to that, I'm going to get help around that, whether that's therapy, whether that's Prevail, whether that's telling a friend for the first time that you trust, no longer hiding it is the first step in a safe environment to your healing process. Mm-hmm. It is the beginning of healing. And I know we're getting close on time. And I just want to invite you, if this is something that's happened, you've got resources right here in Indiana to help you.
Well, Kristen, you've certainly been a champion around this topic. I know I've been at Prevail functions where they've honored you. So I know we didn't give it nearly the due diligence and time that it deserves, but it's important to acknowledge this month and the awareness around sexual assault, and then those that are doing great work in that space. So thanks to you and to Prevail and others who are stepping up to help guide those who have gone through this and those that are affected by it. Last thing, if you are here on this call today and need help immediately, Kristen, where are some other resources that people can turn?
So we also have Cherish here in our backyard too, that I want to mention, that if you have anything, they do the forensic interviewing on the back end. And I want to make sure I mention them too. We have the suicide prevention helpline. So if you're feeling like you are suicidal, have any suicidal thoughts, please call this number, 1-800-273-TALK, 1-800-273-TALK. They're available 24 hours a day. They're fantastic. They will help you. They will walk you through the process of getting help. We also have the disaster distress helpline at 1-800-985-5990, or if you don't want to talk to anyone, you can text 741-741, and there is help available. Please know that you're worth it. You matter. You're important. The lies want to tell you otherwise. The shame wants to tell you a different story. It's not true. You may not even believe what I'm saying, and that's okay. The first step is deciding not to abandon yourself. That is the first step. Take it today if need be.
Yep. Thank you, Kristen, for all this information. And again, on behalf of a grateful city, thank you for volunteering your time yet again this morning to walk us through this. And sorry for the technical glitches early on, but the topic was incredible and covered well by Kristen, even if you didn't see my face, which was your gift for a Monday. So, Kristen, join us back here in 2 weeks for another edition of Mental Health Monday. Everybody stay safe. You matter. Kristen Boice, thanks again.
Thank you.